Hi, thank you for joining us today again. This is episode 2 of our show, Gateway of Hope Suicide Awareness. Today we're going to have a guest speaker, Ms. Barlene Barba. She is a suicide survivor. Um, Hi, sister.
Hi. Wait, can you not see my face?
I can see you.
Oh, that's crazy. I don't see me. Okay. I'm sorry.
It's,
Um, yeah, hi, how are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a blessing, truly.
It is. It is. Thank you. So, do you want to share? You have a powerful testimony. I've had the opportunity to see it before, and wow, it's by the grace of God that you are here. So, would you like to share your testimony?
Yeah, God is faithful. So I share my story basically the way that God has done that work in my life, right? Originally I'm from East LA, so my mom and my dad were married. I have an older brother. And the way that my mom told me the story was that my dad was a drug dealer and supposedly he didn't want me. Um, Apparently, she believes that I was conceived through rape. And so my entire life, she would tell me this, amazing story of how um, my dad tried to kill me when I was in her womb and how she ended up delivering me at 6 months because she almost died, and how I'm this miracle baby because I went to one hospital to fight for my life, and my mom went to another hospital. And so my mom has this huge, elaborate story of being conceived in rape and having, you know, been trying to, my father trying to kill me and like all this craziness. Um, I really don't know what's true and what's not, but I do know that the story of my conception and my eventual birth became the like a I felt like it was a weight that constantly hung around my neck because my mom would tell me that she loves me and I'm her miracle baby, but she was constantly just putting all of this bad stuff on my shoulders. And so yeah, so my mom was in the hospital fighting for her life for like the first 2 years of my life. She eventually became better and was released from the hospital. And at that time, the courts decided that my older brother and I needed to go back with my mom. I was taken from my aunt that was raising me and given to a family that I didn't even know. I had never met them, they had never come to see me. I knew nothing about them. And just the traumatic experience, I remember at that young age crying myself to sleep. Um, when you talk about your entire world being shaken, I don't really have any memories of safe or peace. Every part of my life was consumed with dread. When I was 5 years old, my mom ended up becoming pregnant with my stepdad's baby, and so they moved us into his house with this man and myself and my older brother. And at the age of 5, pornography was introduced into my life, and my older brother started molesting me and doing awful things to me, having his friends come over to do awful things to me. And I just remember trying to tell my mom, like not knowing what to say, not knowing, I'm a kid, like it's humiliating what was happening, and how do you say something like that to your mom. And so we tried to tell her, like, he's hitting me, and she would tell me that it was my fault, that I need to leave him alone and stop messing with him. And she would even tell me, you need to stop tattletaling. She called me a crybaby and a tattletale, when the reality is that he was physically harming me to make me do things. And It was just awful. I had no peace, like my entire childhood was just, it was plagued. When I was in fifth grade, my mom and my stepdad moved us up to a small town near Visalia. So it would be, Visalia is like the bigger area, and it was like half half an hour to get to this small town from the freeway, and then half an hour to get back. And my my older brother decided that he wanted to make friends, and so then he started making fun of me, and then he got other kids to make fun of me. And by the time I was in junior high school, I couldn't walk down a corridor without like people calling these things out to me or laughing at me. I had no friends. I was alone, and so I had no peace. My whole life, my mom, which I later realized is a sociopathic narcissist. And so I was the black sheep of the family. That means anything that would go wrong in the house, it would be my fault. Or if she was just having a bad day, it would be taken out on me. Um, it was just a mess. It was a horrible mess. And so I was being abused at school. I was being abused at home. My mom created this thing called the bed chamber, where she would have me lay on the bed with my face in the pillow, and she would strip me while she hit me with the 2x4 because, supposedly I'm just dirty and just disgusting or whatever. And so it's just, yeah. In junior high, I started self-mutilating. I would get my nails and I would dig them into my face until I was a bloody mess, or I would dig them into my arms and have giant welts on my arms, or I would get anything sharp like a pencil or a letter opener and I would just jam them into my legs because I hated myself. I'm a product of rape. My mom doesn't love me. My dad doesn't love me. He tried to kill me when I was in my mother's womb. Supposedly this miracle, but I'm good for nothing. The only thing I'm good for is to be this nasty thing. And I have no friends and I have no peace. And so every single thing about my life everything just became just dark. I would go to bed praying that I wouldn't wake up. It was just awful. And so I was failing in school, of course, and it was summer school from the 8th grade going into the 9th grade, and I had to take classes just to pass. And I was walking home from school one day, and there was a popular girl walking ahead of me. And I remember thinking, like, if I just walk a little bit faster, that people are going to think that I'm walking with her, and, like, maybe I'll be kind of cool. And so I did. I picked up the pace, and she heard me. And so she turned around and she looked at me, and she said, aren't you, so-and-so sister? And I was like, yeah. And she looked at me and she said, why does he make fun of you? And I just immediately began crying, and she brought me into her home. And the next thing that I knew was that they had, the cool kids had kind of brought me into the crowd and pushed my brother out. And, that's when I started going to, house parties. And these house parties in Central California weren't like regular house parties that you go to like in the neighborhood. Like, you drive like 20 minutes to get to a house in the middle of the boonies. Like, there's farmland all around. And so I went to my first house party and I drank everything that was put in front of me. And my friend, she came to the room and she said, Marlene, she put me in the bed. She's like, Marlene, just go to sleep. And whatever you do, don't open the door for anybody. And I'm thinking, like, what do you mean open the door? Like, I can't even open my eyes. And so she left the room. Next thing I know, I hear the door open and I hear people coming in the room. I hear guys talking. I hear the door close. And as the dresser's being moved in front of the door, I felt people crawling onto the bed. And next thing I know, my friend is banging on the door to get in. She can't. And then I hear a glass shatter. And that's when everybody just got up and ran out the room. Her boyfriend had actually broken the window to try to come in and save me. And you would have thought that that would have been like my come to Jesus moment, right? Like now I'm going to do everything right. But no. So I ended up moving back down to Central California, from Central California down to Hawaiian Gardens. So that's where I lived. Um, so in high school, I was now in the 10th grade, and my older brother went to go live with my dad the same day. And I vividly remember him packing all his stuff into my dad's truck. And I remember like my dad asking if I wanted to go, but I felt obligated to stay with my mom because, my mom had lost her eyesight when I was born because I was a miracle and because my dad tried to kill her, and somehow I was responsible for her being disabled. So then how am I going to leave her when supposedly, it was engraved into my head that I was the one that did this to her. So I was responsible for her. And so I didn't leave with my dad, and I watched my older brother leave. And I just remember thinking, like, why is he being rewarded when he does this awful stuff? But yeah, I have to stay here and take care of my mom. Like, I was a kid, and I couldn't make sense of it. So my mom and my stepdad were constantly fighting. So in order to get out of the house, I got a job when I was 15. I created this identity for myself. So I always had my hair done and cute clothes because now I'm making my own money. So nails are always done, hair is always spot on, makeup's like perfect. And then I started going to raves. And so back in the day, we would get the little rave cards that now like all churches have them, right? But back then, the rave cards were only given to like the pretty girls or the cool guys. Like you couldn't just come across a rave card, right? You had to be invited. And so we would get the rave cards, and then half an hour before the party would start, we would have to call the pager number, and the voicemail would tell us where to go, right? And so that's what we did. Like the rest of high school, I was constantly going to house parties and raves, and I began working for the city of Hawaiian Gardens. So I had a really good job. So I had a nice car, and because I was working for the city, I knew like all the homeboys from the neighborhood, and so I kind of just brought the worlds together: the rave scene, the homeboys from the neighborhood, the house parties. Like I brought it all together with the drugs and all the different types of people, like football players and cheerleaders and soccer players and the neighborhood homeboys. Like it was just chaos, right? And again, like I would pack my car with girls and just I was a muck. And the sad thing is, which is kind of ironic, I would ditch school, but I wouldn't ditch school to go to house parties. Like I would ditch school to go to work because at work is where I felt safe. And at work, I didn't have to pretend to be anybody, right? I didn't have to play a role because if I was at home, I had to play the role of protector or parent to my little brother. Or if I was at school, then I had to play a role for the kids around me at school for them to think that I'm cool or popular or whatever. And if, same thing for parties or for, out in the neighborhood or whatever. But when I was at work, I could be me. And there were people there that genuinely cared about me. And so they would teach me things like how to be a secretary and how to type requisitions and how to, do memos or take commissioner minutes or whatever. And so I enjoyed being around people that liked me. And what I started learning to do was to take the best that I could from any situation I was in, from any relationship. I learned who I wanted to be by watching these people that were nice and they were kind and they were loving. And so I didn't have like a mom at home that cared, but I had the safety commissioner whose husband was a public works officer that would tell me, hey, I'm going to make spaghetti for dinner, come on over. And so then I go over and have a family meal with them. Like, that was the way that I feel like I was learning from my environment the best way I wanted to be, you know? But because my life was so chaotic, I was still looking for love. I was wanting to feel love. And I didn't know what love was. I had seen it, but I had never really felt it. And so I ended up getting pregnant from one of the guys from the neighborhood. And when I got pregnant, I remember thinking, okay, so now that I'm pregnant, I want to protect my baby. So I'm going to give her what I didn't have. In my mind, if I just gave my daughter her father, then she would never be her or go through anything that I ever went through. And after I had my daughter, she was 2 days shy of 2 months old when her father broke 3 of her ribs in her back right side. And I'm in the emergency room, and my baby is screaming and crying because I hear this thing in her back, and I don't know what it is. And I'm in the emergency room, and you know, because I work for the city, the officers are my friends, so they're coming to me and they're like, Marlene, your daughter has broken ribs, and so you need to call a family member. And I'm like, I don't have a family member. Like, I want the doctor. What are they're gonna do for her? Like, what is? I didn't know what was going on. And I had just, I woke up from a nap and my daughter's father's like holding her, screaming over me. So I don't know what's going on. And so the doctors are telling me, like, or my friends are telling me, you don't understand. Like, they're going to come and take your baby from you. You need to call a family member, or she's going to be put in an orphanage. And I didn't have a family member to call. The only person I had to call was my mom. And so I made the call. I didn't know what else to do. And my mom comes into the emergency room, and I'm in the room by myself with my daughter, and I can hear her screaming, give me my baby. I knew you were going to hurt her. Give me my baby. And in that moment, I was no longer fighting for my daughter. Like, my mom came in with this whole mentality that she now has a daughter for her new boyfriend. And so she started manipulating and lying and just all this stuff with the court. I fell into such depression that I had already been pregnant with my second daughter, but I didn't accept it until I was already like 5 months or something. And yeah, by the time my second daughter was born, my mom took her also, and she would call the child's attorney or a representative, whatever, and tell them that, oh look, I got Marlene ready. I'm sorry, I got the girls ready, and Marlene didn't show up. And I would be in the living room with my girls, and my mom would be in the kitchen making these phone calls, pretending like I was, MIA, but I was in the living room with my kids. And I had a really good job, so I was working now for an Alzheimer's facility. I became an executive assistant, and all the cool stuff that I learned when I was in high school from the secretary. The Lord allowed it to be used in the future when I became an executive assistant. And so I was staffing for a 24-hour Alzheimer's facility, and I was always on call. So if I would have to get paged for somebody calling off, it was my responsibility to immediately find a replacement for patient care. But my mom used that as her excuse to say that I was talking on the phone with guys or something. So after 2.5 years of me fighting for custody for my daughters and spending thousands and thousands of dollars on parenting classes and counseling, because you're supposed to do counseling if you're fighting for custody of your kids, right? I finally went to court, and they said that they know that I didn't harm my daughter, but they felt that because I refused to go see them, or if I do, I'm on the phone with men, that it would be a detriment to their mental and emotional well-being to reunify me with them. And so they stripped me of my parental rights. And I didn't know what to do. Like, I had no one. Like, I had no one. I tried calling my dad, my real dad, and trying to tell him, like, I don't know what just happened. My mom, my mom is lying. I don't know what's going on. I need your help. And he said no. And so that in my mind, that was confirmation that what my mom said was true, right? And so now, how do I be a mom? How do I go on living if I don't have my kids? So then I decided that I needed to get my children's case taken into a court that my mom couldn't manipulate, right? And so what I did was I joined the Army. I decided that if I get my case taken into the Uniform Code of Military Justice, that my mom wouldn't be able to manipulate them. So I signed up for the Army, and I shipped out 3 days later. And I wasn't at all prepared for the stress that would be put on my body. And so I developed shin splints my second week of basic that turned into stress fractures by the time I was finished with my training. And it was at that time that my mom was already in the process of adopting my kids, and I didn't know it. I would come home for medical leave or for Christmas vacation, and I would be at the bus stop, and my mom would tell me, she would tell me that I'm not wanted, and I need to get back on the bus and go back. She refused to let me see my kids, or if she did, she would tell me that they're not my daughters, that I had to call them my sisters. So I went back to the Army. I went back to the base in South Carolina, and I did everything I could to get out. I was begging them to let me out. And when I was finally discharged a year later, I found out that my mom adopted my kids. So then now what? Now what do I do? Just a little line, just a little line, and I'll be fine. I just need to be able to survive. I need to be able to not to feel, because I'm a mom without her kids. And the society says I have to be productive and I have to be a good citizen. And then, like, okay, so then I went back to what I knew. I put the mask back on, and I started working, and again, buying nice clothes and nice shoes, and hair's done. But I was dying inside. Every day I felt like I was dead. I would get high to go through the day, or I would smoke a lot of weed or pop pills to go to sleep at night, and then I would just wake up in the morning and wash, rinse, and repeat. And then one day I'm at the bus stop ready to go to work, and there is a man at the bus stop. I ended up starting to date him. He turned out to be one of the major drug suppliers for the part of LA County that we lived in. So all the drugs in the area were ours. We had a nice home. We had many cars, motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it, we had it. And from the outside, everything looked like we had a picture perfect home. But he was beating me on a daily basis. It got so bad that he would rip my hair out with pliers. He beat me with a police flashlight. He would tase me with taser guns. He even once hog-tied me with my hands and my legs tied behind my back while he proceeded to punch me and kick me and put a plastic bag over my head for hours because he wanted me to admit that I was cheating on him when I wasn't. I was with him for 4.5 years, and it was so bad. Eventually, I just couldn't do it. I took